Hello everyone, and welcome to the 6th Winter 2024-25 update. GavsWeatherVids. So here we go again, everyone. It's time to get more winter data. We are up to update number 6 now for our winter updates, and this is going to be a true epic. We've got tabs and tabs and tabs galore to get through, so we're doing this 6th winter update old style. So I should get on it for you in a moment. Try to keep it around the 50-minute mark if possible. We shall see how we get on with that. So the first section you're going to be dealing with critical September analog data. Loads of analogues to come for this first section of this winter update. I say I'll get on that for you in a moment. But the first thing you're going to see is the swingometer. More about that in a second. Just to say thank you so much everyone for tuning in. It's been a busy day. So will be a busy day at GavsWeatherVids today. So we're going to start off. We have started off with 6 a.m. UK weather forecast. And if that wasn't up, we're going to be live at 5:30 discussing this 6th winter update, doing a 10-14 day, and including some long range as well. I shall see you at 5:30 for that. Thank you so much, Richard, the amazing Richard Shaw, our King of Swing, for our winter updates. Yeah, thank you so much, Richard. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. And thank you so much to Shryan Bruin as well for all of the help on this update, getting together the analog years that you're seeing very shortly and whatnot. Thank you so much. Hashtag Team Gav, Shryan and Rich. Unbelievable. I'm rushing because I've got so much to get through on this winter update, but I really have got to crack on. So let's start off with swingometer then. So after 5 updates and 1 seasonal roundup and 1 winter 2024-25 NEO forecast, this is how the swingometer is looking. So in 5, in 4, in 3, in 2, in 1. Here we go. And the swingometer is now favouring a colder than average winter by 60% to 40%. Goodness gracious me, that is after 5 updates and say 1 seasonal round and also one NEO forecast, well, but released back in the summer. So basically the last update, last week's 5th update, did see a further swing from mild to cold, and as I say, we are now favouring a colder than average winter by 60% to 40% within the GavsWeatherVids winter updates. Albeit we're only, less than halfway through. Halfway point will be next week with 7th update, but very interesting, very interesting how these winter updates have favoured a colder than average winter so far. Thank you so much for the amazing King of Swing, Richard. Thank you so much to Richard Shaw for swinging for us. Richard's been swinging, haven't you, Rich? I'm saying nothing. Richard's been swinging for us on this winter update. Thank you so much, my friend. I love it. Right, you're going to find out next week how this 6th update has affected the swingometer, and that'll be the first thing you see at the beginning of next week's 7th update. Right, well, we're going to look at June to September dates first of all. This has come from Richard, this idea. So Richard's been looking back through years that had June and September within half a degree of one another. The reason for doing that, by the way, is that just here, this section of temperature page from Hadley. So you can see that June came out 14.0 and September came out at 14.0 within 0.1 of a degree of one another. And so Rich decided it'd be a good idea to go back and look to 1950 and see which winters followed June and September's within 0.1 of a degree of one another. You think it's quite rare. It's actually quite rare, but it does happen, fairly, not regularly, but it does happen sometimes. So the winters following the Septembers are 1952, 1917, 1973, 1990, 2003, 2014, 2015, 2020, and 2024. Last winter, of course. Right, so overall though, this favours an Atlantic-driven pattern. Plenty of low pressure in the North Atlantic, higher pressure down towards the Azores. A very westerly type pattern is favoured there. This is like the Northern Hemispheric view. Just here again, so it's big area below average heights in the North Atlantic into the west of Europe. Jet stream is going down here. So again, it looks like when June and September within 0.1 of a degree of one another, we favour a mild, wet Atlantic driven winter, at least since 1950. Anyway, there will be some exceptions, some deviations to that, of course. So, for example, we've got 2003, which wasn't that wet, but was generally mild, but did have a few cold snaps coming and going as well. But overall, that's how it looks anyway, with those years where June and September are within 0.1 of a degree of one another. So what about the September central temperature itself, though? So, I say, that came out at 14 degrees. So we're going to be looking now at winters following September's, with a CT range of 13.9 to 14.1, placing September 2024 nicely in the middle of that range. Of course, thanks to Siberian sorting out these years for us. We started off with 1951, 1952. Below average heights, low pressure away to the northeast. Above average heights, high pressure out the Atlantic. Jet stream down here. Rather cool, often quite cold and unsettled for that winter. We've got 1964, 1965, again, with a blocking area of high pressure in the North Atlantic, electrical Green Iceland, and lower pressure across much of Europe. Winds coming in from an easterly or a northeast direction. That's a backload winds, gets colder later through February and March of 1965. Got 1968, 1969, another backloaded winter, but this gets very cold in February, very cold and snowy February. Low pressure overall down there, blocking area of high pressure in the high latitudes. It's a cold, or very cold 1960s winter. Not too cold in January 1969, that's actually relatively mild and wet, but December 68 is quite cold, does have a white Christmas, and then the cold really bites in February of 1969, very, very snowy February, that one. We've got 1969, 1970, this is another backloaded winter, higher pressure in the North Atlantic, low pressure through much of Europe, winds coming in from the east. So again, this gets colder later, very cold and snowy spell late February and into March of 1970. 71, 72 shows up next, following September CT range of 13.9 to 14.1. Higher pressure towards Scandinavia, lower pressure in the Atlantic. That's quite an unsettled but also mild winter there. And they have 78, 79. This is a very cold winter. The last time I had a severely cold sub-zero CT January actually was in 1979. Unbelievable that it's so long ago that we had a sub-zero CT January. I was 2 then. I was 2 years old. I'm going to be celebrating my 47th birthday in a couple of weeks. So that tells you how long ago it was in the Jurassic era. But it did have a blocking area of high pressure up towards Greenland, sent the jet stream down to Spain, and brought wind in from the Urals and from the Arctic and all of those sort of areas. So a very cold and snowy, severely cold and snowy winter for 78, 79. Goodness gracious me, we've got 82, 83 showing up next. This one starts quite mild and gets colder later. So back to the backloaded idea. Low pressure to the north, high pressure to west-southwest, winds coming in from westerly direction. Generally mild and stormy around Christmas to New Year of 82, 83. And then gets cold through February of 1983, setting up a cold spring in 1983. And a classic white Easter. I've got 2007, 2008. This is a mild and dry winter with high pressure there, low pressure there, winds coming up southwesterly direction. And then finally, we've got 2020, 2021, following September CT range of 13.9 to 14.1. This one is the teaser winter, classic teaser. But below average heights just there, needed to go just a little bit further southwards to allow this blocking area of high pressure to go a little bit further southwards. If that had happened, then we would have pulled the wind in properly from the east and had a very cold and snowy winter. As it was a cold winter for Scotland, and it did have its moments elsewhere as well. Even down in the south, there were a few cold snaps and wintry intervals and a little bit of snow as well, but it won't, I don't think, be remembered, except in Scotland, as a particularly cold winter. Right, well, let's put all that together then. This is how all December's combined, looking for a September CT range of 13.9 to 14.1. Generally unsettled across Western Europe for the Decembers, with low pressure in control in the ascendancy. So quite a wettish and relatively mildish signal to start us off. All January's combined look like that. Clearly we're raising the heights to the north. And we are setting up a trough over Western Europe as well. We've still got a trough over Western Europe. We are quite close to turning cold there, as it is probably still very unsettled and quite wet. But all February's combined, much more interesting, not surprising with the number of backloaded winters we've got within that analogues package. So all February's combined for September city range of 30.9, 14.1, sending a jet stream of below pressure southwards, building up a blocking area of high pressure around Greenland, Iceland, and bringing the wind from the east. Bear in mind, there's going to be exceptions to this. So, for example, we've got 1979, that was coldest in January. Again, last time I had a subdued January was in 1979. And 2008 was generally mild and spring-like, I think, in February. No, there will be exceptions, but that's how it looks overall. And putting all winters together, this is how all winters combined are looking following September season range 30.9, 14.1. Yes, we do see a blocking signal in the North Atlantic and going up towards Greenland, below average heights, low pressure down here, and winds tend to be coming in from more of an easterly direction, especially later on in the winter. So it's one of those winters favoured. We favour one of those winters that starts off generally quite mild and wet and gets progressively colder as it goes along. Let's have a look at some precipitation data. So, of course, had a very, very wet September as well, particularly for England and Wales anyway, with a large part of England and Wales getting 200% or more of their average monthly rainfall. It was quite a lot drier further north. In terms of England and Wales precipitation, this is how it comes out. So, for September 2024, we got 153.8 millimetres. Unbelievable. That was 202% of average. And it is virtually up there with, like, the wettest Septembers on record right at the very end. Anyway, see how that blue line, which is 2024, kind of gets up to the red line there, which is the wettest on record. So absolutely incredible, absolutely unbelievable September really for England, Wales rainfall. And look how far above the overall monthly average it was, which is black line just there. So especially in the final sort of 10 days of the month here, when it did get exceptionally wet, but even the first half of the month was quite wet. There was a dry interlude around the middle part of the month. Thankfully, if we hadn't had that, goodness knows how wet it would have been. But anyway, we're going to be counting. So that does place 2024. You'll find out in a moment where it places it. It does place September 2024 within the top 10 wettest Septembers on record for England, Wales precipitation back to 1950. And so you know we love a countdown at GavsWeatherVids. So we're going to be counting down winters following the top 10 wettest Septembers. And we start off at number 10 with 2019. So the winter of 2019, 2020 is the polar vortex of doom winter. Low pressure to north, high pressure down to south, and winds are coming in from the west or southwesterly direction. A very wet, mild, stormy winter to start us off. At number 9, the ninth wettest September was 1999, the winter of 1999-2000. Again, quite a mild winter. Low pressure up to the north and high pressure out in the Atlantic. That brings the wind in from a westerly direction again. A few cold snaps here and there, but overall another mild 1990s winter. We've got at number 8, 1950, 1951. This is a much colder winter, especially so in December. Big trough of low pressure through West Europe, high pressure out in the Atlantic. Jet stream doing something a little bit like that. Has a very cold, wintry December, not quite as cold as December 1981, and not as cold as December 2010, not as cold as December to remember, but nevertheless, it was a cold and wintry, snowy December that we had in 1950. The rest of the winter turns milder in January and February of 51. Then we've got 2001 at number 7. The 7th wettest September was 2000. High pressure up to the north, low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. This is a little bit similar to 2020, 2021, but more unsettled. It's a cold winter for Scotland, with winds regularly in from the east. Further south, Ireland, England, Wales having cold snaps coming and going and whatnot. But for the era, for the period, end of the 90s into 2000, it was one of the cold winters, actually, of that period. At number 6, we've got 1965, the 6th wettest September of 1965, winter of 1965, 1966. Again, quite front-loaded, quite cold in December 1965 and into January of 66 as well, and then gets much milder for February of 1966. Right, we're top 5 now. The 5th wettest September was 1981. Oh, but it's again front-loaded and very cold in December, severely cold and snowy December in 1981. Also a big freeze up through January of 82 for about a week. In the second week of the month. Then it gets much milder though for February of 82 and early spring. So overall we see a blocking signal up here with some jet stream down there, and as I say, we do have a very cold and snowy December. At number 4, we've got 1968-1969, following the fourth wettest September. We saw it earlier on in the first section of analogues, first batch of analogues, back from the second batch, with a blocking area of high pressure Iceland and Greenland, and low pressure sent southwards along with a jet stream as well. Gets very cold into February of 1969, but does actually have a white Christmas in 1968 for some places. Right, top 3 now. At number 3, the third wettest September back 1950 was 1976. This one also has quite a lot of cold weather early on in winter. December 1976 is cold and wintry, and it is quite cold in January 77 as well. It gets much milder February. High pressure blocking around Greenland, low pressure through here. Notice this big trough through eastern parts of America. It was an extraordinarily cold winter, perhaps the coldest winter on record for many eastern portions of the United States because of this trough of low. So western and northern Europe gets gets cold winter weather early on, and then that retreats and it moves over the other side of the Atlantic to America later in the winter. Severely cold in January and February of 1977 for eastern parts of America. Number 2, we've got 1974-75. So this one is a mild winter with low pressure to the north, high pressure to the south, winds coming up from the southwest. That's another mild mid-1970s winter. And what haven't we seen yet? I wonder. Well, at number 1, the wettest September for England Wales precipitation back to 1915. Wow, it's 2024, everybody. And, of course, we haven't yet got the analogue for the winter of 2024, 2025. We're asking the question, what will winter be like? Will we have snowmen or melted snowmen? Or maybe no snowmen at all? We are trying to answer that question, and we will have the answers for you, hopefully, on the 1st of December when we release GavsWeatherVids winter forecast. Right, let's put all that together then, shall we? So just got to zoom in. Zoom. Down a beach. That's for the OGs. Right, so this is how December's combined looking, following the top 10 wettest September. This is how December's combined looking, following the top 10 wettest September. What are you doing, Gav? Get myself mixed up. So, below average heights, low pressure through the northwest Europe. It looks like a very unsettled and wet signal for the Decembers. What about the Januaries? Well, showing the blocking signal a little bit, actually, up towards Greenland. There could be a few colder Januaries in the mix there, but overall, probably still relatively mildish and unsettled for the Januaries. And then all Februaries combined, following top 10 wettest Septembers. Bit disappointing this, I think, for coldness. Low pressure in off the Atlantic into West Europe. A generally mild Atlantic-driven wet February is favoured. But again, bear in mind, there will be exceptions, as ever, within the mix here. But when you put it all together, that's how the February's coming out. I mean, you've got 1969, which was very cold and snowy in February. But that's the exception to the rule, I guess. Maybe 2001 a little bit as well. But exceptions to the rule. Generally, mild, wet February favoured, following the top 10 wettest Septembers, and largely all winters combined, following the top 10 wettest Septembers, looks like that. Overall, we do see a blocking signal, but it's relatively weak, actually, and low pressure below average heights dominates from off the Atlantic. So, overall, a mild, wet winter favour. Probably January has the greatest potential, something a little bit colder. Right, okay, well, that's the first section of the SIP Winter Update done and dusted. We've been talking for nearly 20 minutes, so I'll have a little break there. You go off and stretch your legs, digest what you just witnessed, and when we come back, we're going to be looking at the QBO, quasi-biennial oscillation, so more about that in a second. See you soon. Okay, we're back and we're ready to resume the epic 6th Winter 2024-25 update from GavsWeatherVids. If you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, all folks, and lots, please like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to tell your friends about GavsWeatherVids and the exceptional, very unique content that we're doing here on the channel. And thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. Thank you so much, Richard and Shryan, for all the help on this winter update. Richard for the gear, for the swingometer, and the first analog we started off with, and Shrine, of course, for those analog years. Right, let's crack on then. I'm going to have a look at the QBO next. So this is how the quasi-biennial oscillation is looking in terms of this chart from NASA. So vision has these are levels of the atmosphere: 10 HPA, top of stratosphere, 30 to 50 HPA, boundary level of the atmosphere, back called the troposphere. This sunny brown area is the most recent westerly phase of quasi-biennial oscillation, QBO, descending from the stratosphere down into the troposphere. You can see that we are firmly now into the westerly phase of the QBO and will continue to be so throughout the remainder of the winter, or throughout winter. And we have actually got the QBO number in for September, so let's come down, have a look at that. So you can see how the QBO starts easterly, negative to begin 2024. These very negative numbers by 24, by 25, by 28, etc. We reverse the easterly QBO in the summer and have been strengthening the westerly QBO as we've gone into the late summer and the autumn. So the latest QBO number is plus 10.36. Plus 10.36 is the latest QBO number. And, you know, that tells us that we are firmly in the westerly phase of the QBO, or we was in September, and we can expect those positive numbers to carry on through October, November, December, and then on in January, February, March, April, etc., etc., etc. So we will be having a look at reanalysis for westerly QBO winters before too much longer. Later on in winter updates, hang around and stand by for that. Arctic oscillation observed and forecast is looking like this. The black line shows where I've been with the AO, the red line to the end, where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic oscillation go. Remember, the AO is just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state, does not drive anything in its own terms, just tells what the atmosphere is doing. When the AO is positive, got low pressure up over the Arctic pole. When the AO is negative, got high pressure blocking over the Arctic and over the North Pole. Currently, we are still pretty negative with the AO. And we're going to stay negative through much of the first half of October anyway. Later on, into the second half of October, this will be extended range, of course, and unreliable time frame stuff within the GFS ensembles. But it does also be AO might start shifting into more of a positive phase into the second half of October. So we might start to lose the northern blocking signals later on into the second half of October. The NAO observed and forecast at the same time looks like this. Again, the black line shows where we've been with the North Atlantic oscillation. Red lines at the end where the GFS ensembles forecasting the North Atlantic oscillation to go. Currently, we are very negative actually with the NAO, and likely to stay very negative as well in towards the middle of October. Second half of October, again, same idea as the AO, but not to quite the same extent. We begin to lift the NAO up towards a more neutral phase. Not positive, but a little bit more neutral with the NAO when we go into the second half of October. So we've got the NAO there trending negative to neutral eventually through much of October. And then we've got the AO trending negative to probably positive, slightly positive, when we go into the second half of October. That could be telling us that the blocking signal is relaxing a little bit. We might start reverting back to a rather milder southwesterly flow. We'll have to see. But it's an extended AO forecast data. This comes from the CFS, of course. So unreliable, obviously. But at the moment, we're negative with the Arctic oscillation, as we've already established. And like to stay negative really throughout most of October into November as well. We do get up towards neutral there, second half of October. We've already seen that, of course. But overall, neutral to negative with the Arctic oscillation until we get towards the third week of November. Maybe going weekly positive. Not for long, though. We go back into a negative AO through December. This actually gets to the 30th of December now on this chart. And the AO does look pretty negative there through December. So that tells us blocking is likely to be, or blocking is being forecast anyway, to be a player over the Arctic in December. Doesn't necessarily mean that blocking will be on our side of the pole, though. But that's always the the critical factor. Where is the high pressure? Where is the blocking sitting in terms of who gets cold pushed out? It's how the ENSO extended forecast is looking as well. So again, the ENSO likely to stay generally neutral to negative throughout much of the rest of October. Anyway, could well go into a more positive phase through November, though. And then into December may start trending slightly more towards neutral or negative, but not as convincingly so as the AO there. So quite interesting extended AO forecast data. It's the first time we showed these charts in our winter updates. We'll be interested to see how these extended AO and NAO forecasts perform, and we'll keep looking at those through this season of winter updates. Going into stratosphere, let's have a look at how temperatures are doing at 10 HP over the North Pole. So the black line shows where temperatures have been and currently are at 10 HPA over North Pole. The grey line is a trend line. We're currently just a little bit above average, actually, with the temperature at 10 HPA, but not really deviating that far from like our long-term average. And a little bit low down towards the troposphere at 30 HPA. Again, you see the black line is above the grey line, so temperatures are a little bit above average in the stratosphere at both 10 and 30 HPA over the North Pole. Let's have a look at how the latest GFS is forecasting things. So these blue colours, these were cold temperatures, of course, at 10 HPA in the stratosphere over North Pole. That's basically the polar vortex at its roots there. Now, as we run through, we see that blue area tending to expand out and deeper as well. Notice the blue colours are intensifying. That tells us that the atmosphere is getting colder over the North Pole. Always displays a little bit towards the Greenland and Canadian and European side of the pole, though. And then on into the more extended range. Well, again, we see the blue colours expanding and intensifying. So overall, not particularly doing anything out of the ordinary, I don't think, in terms of the temperature at 10 HPA for the next couple of weeks. Generally, your polar vortex is expanding and intensifying as you would expect at this time of the year. What has been quite unusual about the polar vortex so far this winter, as we talked about last week, did a big section last week, a long section on the stratosphere, and we explained that zonal winds, which is another way of seeing how the polar vortex is performing and developing. Zonal winds have been at a very, very weak, in fact, at times record-breakingly weak level. This is from ECMWF. This is the extended range forecast for zonal wind at 10 HPA. So the zonal wind is basically telling us how strong the polar vortex is. Now, the red line here on this chart, that is like the long-term climatological average, I guess. So where we currently are with the zonal wind down here, we are significantly weaker than average, as we have been throughout most of September. I say at times through September, we did have a record-breakingly weak zonal wind. We got forecast is right. We're likely to keep the zonal wind generally weaker and below average through most of the rest of October, but there is a crossover that's taking place there with the long-term average in the last week of October. And after that, it's a little bit hard to make out because of all of the current lines of spaghetti, but after that, notice how the ensemble mean, which is this thick blue line, actually goes a little bit above the red line. So we're going to see quite a significant change, if that is right, through the final week of October, and then that change lasts through November, with the zonal wind actually going a little bit stronger than average. So we swing from like a at times record-breakingly weak zonal wind, weak polar vortex, essentially through September and into October. We reverse that and swing from that to a slightly stronger than average zonal wind and polar vortex by the end of October, and that lasts through November. Quite a big change. It will be interesting to see what effect, if any, that has on the tropospheric level, because of course then that's in the stratosphere, that's at 10 HPA over the North Pole. Now it'll be interesting if we start to see the polar vortex powering up late October into November within the troposphere. If we do, then we're going to start to see much more in the way of a typical Atlantic-driven, zonal, mild, wet, windy pattern, probably setting up in November. So that will be interesting to keep an eye on. Doesn't necessarily mean a great deal for the winter, though. Right, let's have a look at solar activity. This is how the solar disk is looking on our side of this day from solarham.net. We've got sunspots all over the solar disk. Goodness gracious me, lots of them. And so solar activity was at moderate levels on the 5th of October and is expected to remain at moderate levels for the next 3 days as well. This is the GavsWeatherVids 6th Winter 24-25 updated solar tracker sent through by Shryan Bruin, keeper of the solar tracker. Thank you so much to Shryan for sending this through. The red line, the orange line and orange spots depicting each individual day's worth of sunspot activity. So, of course, we had our peak of solar 25 so far back in the last stages of the summer. Then we had a drop out, or a drop down. Didn't drop out, but we had a drop down in solar activity, daily sunspot numbers through much of September. We have actually in the last week or so, last few days, started ticking that back up again in terms of those orange spots. The red line is the 7-day average, the green line, the 30-day average, of the blue line, the 60-day average. So notice the green line, the 30-day average, is just starting to tick up a little bit now after a few days of higher daily sunspot numbers. Not much change with blue line 60-day average yet. Of course, 60-day average moves around much less compared to 30-day average. But it does look as though we might be starting to go into a slightly more active October after a quieter September. This is how solar cycle 23 is looking overall compared to 24 and 20. I was trying to talk about this. Is how solar cycle 25 is looking overall compared to solar cycle 23 and 24, the past two solar cycles. So this is solar cycle 23 just here. Solar cycle 24 is just there, and then solar cycle 25 is just there. But these are monthly sunspot numbers, not daily sunspot numbers. Quite interesting that the peak of solar cycle 25 so far was in August with that green spot up there. But notice September actually drops things down quite a bit, and so we have seen a back off in both daily and also monthly sunspot numbers during September. It'll be interesting to see what happens in October. Will that stay around there? Will that drop a little bit more? Or will it actually start to lift back up? I'm going to think it might go back up to that sort of level. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with that in October. Clearly a more active solar cycle, as we've explained, the solar cycle 25 compared to the last solar cycle 24, but not as active yet. Probably won't ever get as active either as solar cycle 23. And then Rich sent this through. Thank you so much, Richard, for sending this through. This is spotless days and the current spotless stretch, just confirming that every day in 2024 has had sunspots. So our spotless days for 2024 is 0 days. Every day this year has had sunspots. That's comparable to last year as well, and every day had sunspots. Just one day in 2022 didn't have any sunspots. And of course, back in the last solar cycle, so our comparable year, I think, is 2013 for this year. And in 2013, again, every day that year had sunspots. So not particularly that we wouldn't expect when we are around solar maximum, of course. Thank you so much, Shryan, and thank you so much, Richard, for sending through the solar data there. Right, we're at half an hour, 33 minutes. Have a little break. When we come back, we're going to look at oceans data. That can be quite interesting, and I shall see you for the third section of this epic 6th winter update in a moment. Okay, we're back, and once again, we're ready to resume the epic 6th Winter 2024-25 updates from GavsWeatherVids. If you enjoyed what you've seen so far, please do like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. Thank you so much, Shryan Bruin. Thank you so much, Richard Shaw, for all of help on this 6th Winter update. Hashtag Team Gav. Amazing job, guys. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, let's have a look at some oceans data then. Next. So, this is how the oceans were looking. We did last week's epic 5th winter update. We've got our 4 areas of interest. Of course, we've got the ENSO region just here. We've got the Northern Pacific just here, particularly focused on the Northeastern Pacific. We've got the Indian Ocean over there, and we've got the North Atlantic Ocean over there. That's how things looked last week. Let's have a look at the latest. Here we go. And And in terms of the ENSO region, not much change. Again, we are struggling really to hook up this La Nina. We do see a bit of a La Nina signature there, particularly through the central and western portion of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. Not a lot of colder than average seas of temperature zone in the eastern portion of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. Go back to last week and then pause to this week. So the central western area possibly has seen a slight strengthening of the La Nina signature. I think we might see a slight intensification of those cold average sea surface temperatures there, but in the eastern portion, not much doing through there. In fact, it might even have warmed a little bit through the eastern portion of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. So is this starting to become a central and western based La Nina as opposed to an eastern based La Nina, or just a basin wide La Nina? Possibly, you know, it's early days, but possibly this is starting to become a central and western based La Nina. We'll have more about that later on in our... Hold on. There we go. I've got half an hour without a cough. So not done too badly, have I? But there we go. Started coughing. Never mind. So we'll have more about that. La Nina, no, central base, eastern base, western base, La Ninas and whatnot. We'll do our ENSO special, and that'll be towards the end of the winter updates in November. Going northwards into the northern Pacific, cooling has taken place there. So that's how the northern and northeastern Pacific were looking. That was looking last week. This is the latest. So definitely quite a significant cooling has taken place in that northeastern corner of the Pacific Ocean. Could that be the sign of the cold PDO beginning to strengthen and come back in time for winter 24-25? Possibly. It might be. It could be. We'll need to confirm that over the next few weeks and make sure it's not just a one-off deviation or whatnot. And then into the Indian Ocean. Again, that's how things are looking last week. That's how things are looking this week. Not much change other than this central portion seems to have warmed up a little bit in the North Atlantic. So we're coming over here. Remember, the IOD, the Indian Ocean dipole, is currently neutral and is expected to stay neutral throughout the winter. So the IOD shouldn't be a player, really, I don't think, for this winter. And then in the North Atlantic, yeah, that's how things were looking last week. This is how things are looking this week. So possibly some cooling has taken place here around Cape Verde Islands and Canary Islands towards Africa and whatnot. At the same time, the warmth will also getting pushed more towards the western subtropical Atlantic and toward the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. And that sort of area through here. Further northwards, just still generally warm and average sea surface temperature anomalies. Looks like much of the Atlantic remains above average as it has been for several years now. We have seen a bit of a cooling going on in the Norwegian Sea up here. Over the past week, I think. So a little bit of cool down happening in the Norwegian Sea, which is slightly unusual. But of course, that's shallower waters and is prone to temperature changes with the weather and whatnot. And also we see the Med, a little bit cooler perhaps in some more recent years. Bay of Biscay as well could be a little bit cooler compared to some recent years. This is how the 7-day change is looking, 7-day trend. And in the equatorial Pacific Ocean, in the ENSO region, again, sort of the idea, I think, is there that the La Nina could be starting to become more central western based with cooling there in some areas, while in the eastern portion, not much cooling going on. In fact, some areas in the eastern portion are warming. Not a lot happening in the Indian Ocean either. It is warming through this area, maybe cooling a little bit through that area. Generally, most parts of the Indian Ocean are warming. This is quite interesting, though, up here in the northern Pacific. We have seen quite a significant cool down there over the past 7 days. So that explains why the sea surface temperatures are becoming colder than average there, northeastern Pacific. And then in the North Atlantic, well, a lot of variation from area to area. So a bit of cooling through here, a bit of warming through there, a bit of cooling through there. Generally warming through this western portion of subtropical Atlantic Caribbean, as I say, and then generally cooling a little bit through here, and then warming perhaps a little bit up here. A lot of variation, excuse me, going on from area to area in the Atlantic. But the Norwegian Sea has cooled, as I said. So generally things have cooled down in the Norwegian Sea. The North Sea is also cooled, as has the Baltic Sea, Mediterranean, especially Eastern Med, cooling as well, and also the Bay of Biscay. So generally the shallower waters towards Europe are cooling, or have cooled over the past 7 days, and in the deeper the deeper waters of the Atlantic, a lot of variation from area to area. Coming back to La Nina, this is how the SOI is currently looking. The Southern Oscillation Index is measuring air pressures between Tahiti and also Darwin, and then coming out with an overall SOI number. When the SOI is negative, the atmospheric setup between Tahiti and Darwin will be reflective of El Nino. When the SOI is positive, the atmospheric setup will be reflective of La Nina. Now, we did have some positivity of the SOI with these weekly positive numbers here at the end of September. Then we had a couple of negative days, actually. 2nd of October went down to minus 0.00. 3rd of October went down to minus 5.61. And 4th of October went very negative, actually, minus 10.38. That's an atmospheric setup that's quite strongly reflective of El Nino. So we still see this fighting going on in the atmosphere, depicted through the Southern Oscillation Index. We still see some days where the atmospheric setup is reflective of El Nino, some days where the atmospheric setup is reflective. Let's change colour to explain this. Atmospheric setup is reflective of La Nina, these days just here. And then back to an atmospheric setup that's more El Nino in type again through there. So whilst we're getting these daily contrasts, while the atmosphere is swinging from El Nino to La Nina type phase, the ocean, the landing itself, just can't get itself going, really. That's, I think, is what's going on at the moment. It explains why the landing is really struggling. Now, this is from the CFS-B2. CFS-B2 is still forecast, but we're going to have a weak landing year for this winter. So temperatures on the side, dates of appears along the bottom. That's January 2025, just there. By which time we're about a degree below average in the central portion of the actual precipitation. So a weak landing year still being predicted by CFS-V2. We shall see. And connected to the oceans, of course, is the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season. So this is the Atlantic hurricane season page from Wikipedia. These are the latest scores of doors, Miss Ford. And we see that total pressures are at 13. Total tropical storms are at 13 as well. Hurricanes are at 8. And major category 3 or above hurricanes are at 3. So how does that compare with what you'd expect to, where we'd expect to be at this point in the season? Let's have a look at this from Ace Master Shryan. Thank you so much to Shryan for keeping our Ace page updated. Remember, Ace is a way of measuring how much energy each individual storm is giving out, and then coming up with an overall accumulated cyclone energy for the season as a whole. The overall classifications are below normal, near normal, above average, hyperactive, coming down to 2024. I could be a game show host, couldn't I? We can see that now our ACE, or accumulated cyclone energy, is standing at 97.30. That is after 12 tropical storms, 8 hurricanes, and 3 major category 3 or above hurricanes. The season, 2024 hurricane season, is now near normal, has gone from being generally below average to about average. And in terms of what we'd expect to see at this point in the season, the reason we are near normal is that we'd expect to have an ACE up to the 5th of October of 99.90. So we're still slightly under, but not by, only by like 2 points. That will be after 11 tropical storms, 5 hurricanes. So we are doing better for hurricanes. So we have had more hurricanes compared to what you'd expect at this point in the season, albeit we're a little bit low on tropical storms compared to what you'd expect at this point in the season. No, actually, what am I talking about? We're above average for tropical storms and also hurricanes compared to what you'd expect at this point in the season. And we're about on par for major hurricanes. So quite interesting actually. Our ace is a little bit low, really, compared to what we've had previously. Compared to the fact that we've had 12 tropical storms, 8 hurricanes when we would have expected to have 5, and we have had 3 majors as well. You know, our ace actually, let's probably expect our ace to be a little bit higher than that. So obviously the storms and hurricanes that we have had have probably been, you know, a little bit weaker than you'd expect. We've probably had lots of category 1 hurricanes and whatnot, and that probably explains that, I would have thought. Right, okay, well, we're 45 minutes in, and we've still got Eurasian snow cover to look at, so I shall be back in a moment with that one last little break, and then we shall be back. Can we keep this under the hour? We shall see. I'll see you in 2 seconds. See you soon, everyone. Okay, we're back and we're ready to resume the final section of this SIP Winter 2024-25 update from GavsWeatherVids. I shall talk no more. I won't say anything else because we're pushing on the time. So let's do this. The last section is going to be looking at Eurasian snow cover. So this is how things look in terms of Eurasian snow cover when we did last week's 5th update. We had some white areas here over in the eastern, northeastern portion of Russia and Siberia, but how do we compare now how things developed over the past week? Here we go. So have seen an expansion of snow cover in the eastern region of the Siberia through here. We have seen some quite significant gains over the past week up to the 4th of October in eastern and northeastern portions of Russia. But how does that compare to the latest year? We're going to go all the way back to 1966. Blink and you miss it. So let's do this. So this is how we compared to this point last year. What do you think about that, everyone? So I reckon we've probably got more snow cover this year compared to last year, albeit in slightly different areas. This is how we compare, though, to 2022. Again, what do you think about that? And probably less in way of snow cover this year compared to same point in 2022. That's 2021. Again, what do you think about that? Probably more snow cover this year compared to 2021. That's 2019. Didn't have 2020, unfortunately. That's 2019. And I'm not sure what happened to 2020. I think that year, you know, there are a few days missing in the archive, unfortunately. But that's 2019 anyway. So we have got less in way of snow cover this year compared to same point in 2019. That's 2018. So we've got more snow cover this year compared to the same point in 2018. That's 2017. Again, what do you think about that one? Probably more snow in 2017 compared to this year. That is 2016. And again, I think we're behind 2016 for Eurasian snow cover this year. By the way, we will be focusing on Scandinavia as well, but there's not much happening in Scandinavia and Nordic regions yet. It's a little bit early for that, but next week, and particularly week after, we'll also look at Scandinavia and Nordic regions. But for the time being, we're focusing on Russia and particularly Siberia. So compared to this point in 2016, we have more snow at this point. We're behind 2016 this year. That is 2015, so we're behind 2015 as well. I think that's 2014, probably quite closely matched to 2014. Please let me know in the comments which years you think we're closest aligned to. That's 2013, we're significantly behind 2013 this year, and that's 2012. So overall, we might be quite similar in terms of total snow coverage, but the areas that are covered are really very different this year compared to 2012, so not much comparison there. That's 2011. I think we're a little bit ahead of 2011 at this point, and then that is 2010. Think about that, well, we're probably quite close to 2010. I think that could be one of the closest matches at this point. That's 2009. We're ahead of 2009 at this point, quite significantly ahead actually, and that's 2008. We're also ahead of that year. That is 2007. What do you think about that? Yeah, probably quite close, about maybe a little bit ahead of there. That's 2006. I think we're ahead of 2006, and that's 2005. Again, I think we are ahead of 2005. That's 2004. What do you think about that year? Could be quite closely matched to that year. Actually, that's 2003. I think we're ahead of 2003. That's 2002. We're way behind 2002. Goodness gracious me. Look how much snow cover we've got already at this point in 2002. And then that is 2001. I think we're a little bit behind 2001 as well. That's 2000. So I think we're a bit ahead of 2000. And that's 1999. Again, what do you think about that year? Probably a little bit ahead of that year as well. And then finally, for Link charts, 1998. I think we're a bit behind 1998. So we're nicely in the centre of pack as it was last week. Nicely in the centre of the pack back to 1998. But we're going to go even further back. Now, I'm not going to do year-by-year comparisons. Haven't got time. But please keep that in mind, okay? So keep that in mind, especially this area here where we see the snow cover. And then if you think you've got to stand on your head, really. So if you flip this around, you know, reversed it, then it would align with that kind of. But just to explain, the UK is just there, Scandinavia, Nordic region is just there, and then sort of Russia back to Siberia, just there. Right, I won't do year-by-year comparisons, but just please keep that in mind and let me know in the comments what you think. So I think we're ahead this year at this point in 1997. We're behind this point in 1996. Could be quite close to 1995. A little bit ahead, I think, this year, maybe, of 1994. This is pretty subjective, I have to say. Perhaps a bit behind 1993. Probably a bit ahead of 1992. Ahead of 1991, definitely. Maybe quite close to 1990. Behind 1989. Way ahead of 1988. That's quite close to 1987. Probably a little bit behind 1986. Way ahead of 1985. Probably quite close to 1984. Again, maybe relatively close to 1983 as well. Ahead of 1982. Ahead of 1981. Way ahead of 1980. Probably a bit behind 1979. Could be quite close to 1978, maybe a little bit ahead of that year. Way behind 1977, goodness gracious me. And way behind 1976 as well. Behind 1975, probably a little bit ahead of 1974. Areas covered are different. Probably behind 1973, behind 1972. Maybe a little bit behind 1971, probably a little bit behind 1970, no data for 69, unfortunately, behind 1968, a little bit ahead of 1967, and probably quite close to 1966. That's how we look, and we'll see next week what's happened over the previous week. And that's it, everybody. That is your 6th Winter 2024-25 update. I brought it in. Wow, I didn't want to do that. I brought it in at 50, it'll be 52 minutes in a moment. So, brought it in under the hour again. Yes. As long as I can keep these winter updates under the hour, I'm going to be happy. So, thank you so much. Still epic, though. Still epic. Oh, the content. 50-minute videos, blimey. And, of course, we put those breakpoints in along the way. With the expectation that you will go away and, you stop it, you pause it, you go away, you'll come back maybe later in the day, you'll come back tomorrow and resume the next section and then stop again and then maybe come back the next day and resume the next section. So that's the way these are designed to be seen and to be viewed. That's the way I'm specifically recording these videos. I don't expect everybody to sit for like 50 minutes or more watching me do the winter update every week. Of course, some people do. You can see from the stats there are people that do that, watch the whole thing in one go. But I think more people prefer to do it in bite sizes, and so that's the reason we put the breakpoints in along the way. Anyway, another winter update, another epic coming out under the hour mark as well, so I'm quite happy with that. I hope you've enjoyed this 6th Winter update. If you have, please like, share and subscribe. Thanks so much everyone for doing that. Let me know in the comments which is you think we're closest match to terms of that Siberian snow cover, and we'll look at it again. Of course we will, next week, as well as all of the other winter updates goodness. Thank you, Shona Richard, for our amazing winter updates gift, and for being the king of swing, and for just being generally awesome and absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Rich, for all the help of the update. And thank you so much to Shine Bruin as well. Hashtag Team Gav doing an awesome job for me and for GavsWeatherVids. Thank you so much, guys. We're going to be live at 5:30 discussing this winter update, doing a 10-14 there, and looking at some long range as this Sunday live stream. So I should see a little bit later on for that one. But for the SIF Winter 2024-25 update from GavsWeatherVids, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.